Welcome back to Breakfast on GB News and a very happy new year to you all. And already we're getting some messages in, which shows that plenty of you are wide awake and aren't struggling with a headache.
Absolutely. Mally in Hull. Hello, Mally. My New Year's resolution is simply to watch more of GB News Breakfast when I can. Happy New Year to all who are working on the show today. Mally, happy New Year. Thank you for watching. Adrian in Sheffield says, I think positive thinking could help. Don't say, I'm going to diet, because that puts it in the future and tomorrow never comes. Instead say, I never overeat. That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, very good advice from Adrian. Mark in Malvern. Hello, Mark. He says, I've suffered with my mental health for 18 months. However, since changing my job with the company's support and the help from my wife's family, I'm finding a big light at the end of a long tunnel. The other major factor in my recovery is going to the gym at least 3 times a week. Well, Mark, we wish you all the best.
Yeah, good on you, Mark. And it's well proven, isn't it, that exercise releases those endorphins and is so good for your mental health. And even if it's just going out for a walk, you know, going out for a walk with your dogs.
Yeah, you don't need to run a marathon, do you? Just little things.
It's great. Right, more of your views to come. Let's first now, though, take a look at some of the newspaper front pages before we talk to our guests. The Times reports that under a new border plan, passengers arriving here will not need to present their passports. Instead, they will all use electronic gates and facial recognition.
The Daily Mail leads with the latest revelation that gender's official documents can be altered with just a doctor's note.
The Daily Mirror says that 71% of those taking part in a survey support the legalisation of assisted dying.
The Daily Express says in the past year, 1 in 5 GP appointments in England lasted under 5 minutes.
And the Eye leads with the exclusive story that the growing use of lie detector tests by police forces may be unlawful. Joining us now to go through some of the day's headlines. They've been so good, getting up lovely and early for us. Lawyer and futurist.
Hi, thank you. It's got to be good.
Andrew Eborn.
Good morning.
Former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire. A very good morning to you both.
We're ready for more in 24, and I tell you what, you two have been brilliant to get up so early.
Oh,
and it's
thank
you so much. Andrew, front of the Times, this facial recognition at the border, it's very futuristic, isn't it?
Well, I love it, and as indeed predicted, as you know, I talk around the world about the future and what's going to happen, how we should embrace technology. It is nonsense to walk around with a little book and you show people that sort of stuff. So this is the future. It's something we've been talking about forever, about facial recognition, and this is going to be the solution to all sorts of things. If you look at most people's wallets, they're carrying all sorts of cards, whether it's to do that sort of stuff. You can have one device which can basically connect all of that. And actually your best way of identifying things is through your face. I worked for many years for Fujifilm, who basically did this sort of facial recognition side. And they say even after plastic surgery, there are parts of your face that never, ever, ever change. So it is the most secure way of identifying anybody. And what this particular report says, they're talking about frictionless travel. So it's very good. It's intelligent borders. And basically, Phil Douglas, who's the Director General of Border Force, that's what he's looked at. He went to Dubai, and they say, look, this is what they've got. You go in there, and they recognise what it is, and it's brilliant.
So are you saying you shouldn't need to carry your passport?
I'm saying you shouldn't need to carry it. I'm going even further than this, is what I'm going to say. I reckon you don't need to carry most of the stuff you carry.
Andrew,
Scarlett.
just wait until the gates go down. I mean, how many times have I just remember going through Stansted after midnight, coming back from Jordan and waiting an hour because the electronic gates weren't working and we had to show our passports. So, you know, it's all fine until it goes wrong.
Oh, but you're absolutely right, Scott. And what do I know? Scott and I have been having so much fun in the green room. I say that's where the show needs to start earlier. We've just absolute joy. But you're absolutely right. But all that's doing is then taking you back to the existing system.
Yes.
So if this is better and it works in a really efficient way, which it does in Dubai, that's the future.
No, I think it's great. And I mean, I remember going to Australia and being really frightened because I didn't have a visa in my passport. But actually, somehow they chipped it.
Yes.
So you just do what you went straight through the electronic gates. No, everything's brilliant.
Yes.
until the
goes wrong.
electrics goes wrong.
Oh, no, absolutely.
That's all.
And that's the thing. People are so dependent on their electronic devices, and that people don't back up. The one thing in New Year, you should back up all your data on your computers, on your phone, and everything else. Because when it goes down, people are robbed, aren't they, of their identity?
Carry your passport.
But
Carry everything.
it's a little bit Big Brother is watching you.
Oh, absolutely.
Facial recognition gates at the airport.
Absolutely. Oh, and that's the scary moment, because they're now predicting things like shoplifting. There's a big scandal last year. They say, well, hang about, that person's got this sort of, the way they walk, the way they talk, the way they look, they could be a potential shoplifter.
Well,
Are you comfortable with that?
I'm very comfortable. I'm very comfortable with Big Brother.
Says Big Brother spying on you.
Well, I think the reality is people are so obsessed. We used to have an obsession about identity cards. You remember that? People used to say, I'm not going to carry an identity card. The reality is we already do. Every time you have your shop loyalty card, every time you use a credit card, these mobile phones in your pocket, we can pinpoint people already.
But the problem with facial recognition is it's really for white people. I mean, there is a real problem with colour, and it's because it's not sophisticated enough. So I think we do need to think hard about it.
And also, this is only one country doing it, or a couple of countries doing it so far. So you're still going to realistically have to carry a passport with you for the time being.
Oh, yeah.
Because not every country's going to have facial recognition.
Well, also, you're going to have to carry your passport for when it all goes wrong.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, you know, it is. And can I say that all of this sounds great? I have a passport that spells my name incorrectly. My driving licence spells it incorrectly in a different way. My credit cards spell it incorrectly again. I mean, for those of us...
So your passport's got spelling errors in it?
Yeah.
And it's still
and my
accepted?
driving licence, I'm having real problems with my driving licence at the moment. Yeah. And when I went to have it renewed, they said, and I said, do you think I can have it spelt properly? And they went, only if you bring your birth certificate. And I thought, no, I just need a new passport.
And isn't that shocking, though? Because Maguire, it's got 2 C's and a G.
And a W.
And a W. It's rather like E-born. We normally put too many vowels in. There's always a vowel movement somewhere.
Yes.
But what you have to work on that sort of basis, I find it extraordinary that your documents can all be different, because that's the whole point of documents, to make sure they can identify you.
I know.
Whereas your face, there's only one face. I think that's the important thing. I hope. Although it is the Labour Party.
Andrew, I think that's a bit much.
I would have a funny turn every time I looked at my passport if my name was spelt wrongly.
Yes.
Because my name gets spelt wrongly, you know, the rest everywhere else.
How can you spell Pip wrong? How does that work?
Well, do you know what? On air, it always used to be Philippa, but nobody can spell Philippa. Or not in the way I like Philippa to be spelled. So then it became Pip, because I thought no one could get that wrong. But my surname, like your surname, is a blooming nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is a complete... And I can spell it out to people and watch them spelling it wrong. And I never know how anybody's going to spell it.
You'd think there'd be more checks with a legal document, wouldn't you?
You think?
Yes.
You would think.
Scarlett, let's move on to a story in The Guardian.
Right.
Doctors told to consider the risk of air pollution when assessing patients.
I mean, this is Great Ormond Street Hospital, who's saying that they realise that actually when they get children in with lung problems or with breathing problems, that they need to know where these children live, because there are heavy air pollution things. I mean, you know, I think it's air pollution kills 7 million people a year globally. I'm not saying in Britain. It is really important. It's something that we don't take seriously enough, and instead we sort of make jokes about ULEZ and destroying ULEZ cameras. But actually, I mean, I remember years ago, because I'm a lot older than you, that it was about lead in petrol, and lead in petrol was actually killing children, and that's why they got rid of it. And I think now that we need it, and what Great Ormond Street is saying, and this is all came about because of Ella Adu Kissi Deborah, who died when she was 9, and the coroner said it was because of air pollution, because she had asthma. And her mum said that had she known it was a bad place to live, they would have moved. Yeah. And so it's actually giving information to people to say, you've got a sick child and you need to move.
And is this just Great Ormond Street Hospital, or doctors across the country?
No, this is Great Ormond Street Hospital saying we need to think about this.
And what we should do is actually, going back to technology, the information is out there. Information is power. The more that doctors can share that information, what I believe in, and again, I predict this for the future, is every doctor's surgery anywhere in the world should have access to a central resource to say, this is what happens. They're from this area, therefore ask these questions. I'm working with an organisation called Science with Soul, which is looking at exactly that. And they're saying that sometimes very serious things like cancer and so on and so so forth. They could have got earlier diagnosis if they'd known that there were risks.
Right.
And I think if you work on that sort of basis, so it's not just air pollution. Well, I'm pleased to raise this story. It's right that you should look at that. But there are many other things that you can do. And I think in the future, the more that we can look at this sort of information is power, prevention is so much better than cure.
But it's looking at different geographic locations, isn't it? Because clearly, if you're in an inner-city hospital, there potentially is going to be more air pollution, whereas if you're in the country, there's going to be less air pollution.
Yeah, but so Great Ormond Street obviously has lots and lots of children from London. I mean, it also has children from around the country, lots of children from London, and it is where are you based in London? So where I live it's Islington, it's inner city, but it's regional. But actually, the biggest problem is from wood-burning stoves.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, darling, the middle classes.
So many.
They are really, really polluting,
yes.
And nobody's going to do anything about it.
Well, they are going to do it because we're going to talk about things. And I think if we look at that sort of basis, but I do go back to the whole point about prevention being better than cure. And I know some tragic cases, people have contacted me about some cancers within their family, and they didn't have to share the information. But if they had, if the doctor knew there might be some risks, they could have done earlier tests on that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So we do need to look at these areas, and I do think basically technology and the advances that we have, the tremendous advances in AI and various other things, that's the way to do it. Data is power.
Data is power.
So this is a pilot scheme by doctors at Great Ormond Street, but, you know, if this works, it's quite conceivable.
Oh, yeah.
Loads
and it's I mean, there are loads of places around the country, and you're right. If you live in the middle of nowhere, you're probably okay. But I mean, most people live in towns and cities.
They live in the middle of somewhere.
And you need to know about the pollution.
OK. Andrew, take us to the Telegraph, please.
Yes, as though we need another war. I mean, whilst I absolutely get, as Defence Secretary, you have to be powerful and make very strong statements, what Shapps is saying is UK is ready to attack the Houthi rebels in this sort of situation. And they're considering airstrikes on Houthi rebels, as the Defence Secretary warned that UK would not hesitate to take direct action over their attacks on cargo ships. It is the language of war. He's being very tough on this sort of stuff. And obviously the US in the similar sort of position. But what are we going to do? There's all these conflicts around the world.
Well,
to work on that sort of resolution.
Canterbury in his New Year address has said, hasn't he, that it feels like there's a war everywhere.
I mean, he's absolutely right. So you think an airstrike? I mean, we know from Gaza what an airstrike is. Airstrikes kill lots and lots of innocent people, right? I mean, there's no question about it. Let's have another war. Let's go into the Gulf and cause more problems. I mean, you know, because it was so successful, wasn't it, when we went into Afghanistan? Look at where it is now. When we went into Iraq, I think we need to be thinking rather harder before we say let's release the bombs.
But that depends on all sides being willing to negotiate and being in the same mindset as you. And the problem is that all sides aren't in the same place,
but I'm not sure what bombing... I mean, bombing just causes more problems.
No, you're right. But I think what's happened, and same with Rwanda, the whole idea of Rwanda is not to send people to Rwanda at all. It's always been that sort of horrible... It's to stop people. So when Shapps comes out with the language of war, the hope is that they will stop people doing it. It's a deterrent. And I think it's rather like the nuclear button. Nobody wants to press that and all the horrible things that would happen. But if we didn't have that deterrent, it may not stop people. Let's see if this language of war, which is what he's got, if that will work.
And do you think Scarlett Grant Shapps does have that instant respect as Defence Secretary?
No, because look how many jobs he's had. I mean, I think there certainly have been worse defence secretaries in the last few years, and I do think, to be fair on Grant Shapps, that he moves slowly, that he isn't the first thing. But I mean, it really, really bothers me that we've got this bellicose language that is not backed up. And you think, you know, I mean.
But you can't have cargo ships being attacked in the Red Sea.
No, you can't have. No, that's right. But I'm not sure that saying we're going to bomb you is a deterrent.
So what would you do, Scarlett? What would you do?
I would do what I do. You have to get people round a table. I just don't think that bombing cities actually works. I think because you live with the consequences for years afterwards.
And wars, of course, create refugees.
Exactly.
And we don't want them. I mean,
we don't want wars, but we want deterrence, and that's the whole point, isn't it? So you have to threaten things to get people around the table.
Well, except
it's not working, is it?
If you don't, you have to follow your threats through. And I remember, I was on Michelle's programme talking about refugees, and she said, why do we have to pick up all the problems that we've caused? And you think, that's the problem, is we cause these problems. I mean, a lot of refugees are escaping war, right, who are coming across the Channel. I mean, you know, I've had a Yemeni refugee living with me. Well, you know, it's not fun.
Well, climate, they say, climate change is a cause for refugees as well.
Oh, yeah.
Fleeing their countries. I mean, it is such a global problem, and we ain't going to solve it in this conversation, are we? But it is an interesting talking point. Thank you for your company, if you are just joining us. A very happy new year to you. You are with Breakfast on GB News. Let's get your weather forecast. It's still very unsettled. Here you go.